On the broken plains of a distant planet, human soldier Ethan lay injured after a failed retreat. Smoke drifted slowly across the dark ground, blurring the sky into shades of gray and red. The air smelled of burned metal and dust. Each breath felt heavy as if the planet itself pressed down on his chest. His armor was cracked along one side, and the warning lights on his suit flickered weakly. Ethan tried to move his leg, but pain shot through him, sharp and deep, forcing a low breath from his lips. Around him, the battlefield was quiet in a strange way. The loud weapons and shouting from earlier had faded, replaced by distant echoes and the soft crackle of fires. Broken machines lay scattered like fallen giants, half buried in the dirt. Marks from energy blasts scarred the ground, glowing faintly as they cooled. Somewhere far away, a ship burned, sending a column of smoke into the sky. Ethan rested his head against the cold ground and closed his eyes for a moment. He could still hear the retreat order in his mind, shouted through static and fear. Fall back. Get to the ridge. Hold the line. He had tried to follow, had run as fast as his legs could carry him. Then the blast came from nowhere, throwing him forward and into the dirt. After that, everything blurred into pain and silence. He opened his eyes again and looked at the sky. The planet's sun was low, stretched wide and red, like a wound across the horizon. It reminded him of Earth's sunsets, though this one felt colder and more distant. He wondered if he would ever see Earth again. The thought came softly without panic and surprised him. He had imagined fear would be loud at a moment like this, but instead it was quiet. His hand twitched, brushing against the small device clipped to his chest plate. A communicator. He tapped it once, then again, but no signal came back. The screen stayed dark. The rest of his unit was gone, either pulled back or lost like him. Ethan swallowed and tried to push himself up. His arms shook and he fell back with a short groan. He stared at his hands, dirt-covered and trembling. Enemy forces were still out there. He knew that much. They always followed after a retreat, careful and patient. Ethan imagined them moving through the smoke, scanning the ground, searching for survivors. He had seen what happened to those who were found. Capture was worse than death, or so everyone said. He wondered if that was true or just something soldiers told themselves to stay brave. The wind picked up, carrying ash across his face. It stung his eyes and he blinked hard. He thought of his sister back home, the way she laughed too loudly and never listened to warnings. He thought of his mother's quiet messages sent before every deployment. Stay safe. Come back. He had promised he would. Now the promise felt fragile, like glass already cracked. Ethan shifted slightly, trying to make himself smaller against the ground. His suit's power was almost gone, and the heat inside it faded fast. Cold crept in, first at his fingers, then deeper. He focused on breathing, slow and steady, counting each breath. 1, 2, 3. It helped keep his thoughts from drifting too far. A distant sound reached his ears, low and heavy. Not wind. Not fire. Footsteps. Slow ones. Ethan's heart began to pound, loud enough that he was sure it could be heard. He turned his head just enough to look through the smoke. Shapes moved far off, tall and broad. Enemy patrols. He had seen them before, massive and armored, built for war in ways humans were not. He felt fear then, sharp and clear. His hand moved again, searching for a weapon, but his rifle lay several feet away, broken and useless. He let his arm fall back to the dirt. There was no strength left for fighting. No strength left for running. Only waiting. The footsteps grew closer, each one pressing into the ground with weight and purpose. Ethan closed his eyes, not out of surrender, but because he was too tired to keep them open. He listened to the sounds of the battlefield, to the distant fires and the slow approach of something unstoppable. His breathing grew shallow and his thoughts slowed. In that moment, Ethan accepted the truth he had been avoiding. He would not make it home. There would be no rescue ship cutting through the smoke, no sudden push from his unit to drive the enemy back. This was the end of his path, on a quiet stretch of alien soil far from anything he loved. The acceptance did not feel like giving up. It felt calm, almost gentle. He thought briefly that he hoped his unit had made it out. He hoped the retreat had worked. If his fall had bought even a few seconds for others to escape, then maybe it had meant something. That idea brought him a small sense of peace. The ground trembled once, closer now. Ethan opened his eyes again, just a crack. Through the smoke, a massive shadow moved toward him, blocking out what little light remained. He could make out no clear shape yet, only size and presence. The shadow stopped near him, close enough that the ground seemed to hum. Ethan did not move. He did not speak. He simply breathed and waited, his gaze fixed on the dark shape before him. Whatever came next, it would come soon. A towering alien warrior emerged from the haze, his massive shape slowly becoming clear as the smoke drifted away. Ethan lay frozen on the ground, his heart pounding as the giant stepped closer. The alien was far taller than any human, built like a moving wall of armor and muscle. His heavy steps pressed deep marks into the dirt, yet he moved with control, not rage. Ethan expected a sudden strike, a sharp end, or rough hands pulling him away. He prepared himself for pain and fear. Instead of attacking, the alien stopped beside him and lowered himself to one knee. The ground trembled softly from the weight. Ethan stared in disbelief as the giant reached out with one large hand, open and slow. The hand did not carry a weapon. It did not clench into a fist. It simply hovered there as if asking permission. Ethan's breath caught in his chest, and his fingers twitched against the dirt. The alien made a deep, calm sound, low and steady. Then, with great care, he slid one arm under Ethan's back and another beneath his legs. Ethan gasped as he was lifted from the ground. Pain shot through his body, sharp and sudden, and he let out a weak sound. At once, the alien adjusted his grip, holding Ethan more gently, keeping him steady and safe. Ethan was pressed against the alien's armored chest, his head resting near thick plates marked with strange symbols. One symbol stood out, carved deeper than the rest. It marked the warrior's name. Ethan did not know how he understood it, but the name felt clear in his mind. Kor, a name spoken with fear among human soldiers. A champion of the enemy. A giant built for war. Kor rose to his full height, lifting Ethan easily as if he weighed nothing at all. From this new view, the battlefield looked distant and broken. Smoke curled across the land like slow waves. Burned machines and fallen bodies covered the plains. Ethan felt small and helpless, yet strangely secure in the alien's hold. Kor turned his body away from the battle. His broad back now faced the sounds of fighting. Energy blasts flashed behind him, lighting the smoke in brief bursts of color. Ethan noticed how Kor shifted his stance, placing himself fully between the danger and the human he carried. More alien warriors emerged from the haze. They stopped when they saw Kor holding Ethan. Their movements slowed. Some raised their weapons slightly, unsure. Others tilted their heads, confused. This was not expected. This was not allowed. Ethan could feel their eyes on him, cold and judging. A sharp call echoed through the air, loud and commanding. It came from one of the warriors behind them. Kor did not answer. He took a single step forward instead, his armor scraping softly as he moved. The message was clear. He would not obey. Kor began to walk, each step heavy but calm. Ethan clutched weakly at the edge of the alien's armor, not to escape but to stay steady. He could feel the steady rise and fall of Kor's chest beneath him. It was slow, controlled, almost peaceful. Energy fire cut through the air again. One blast struck Kor's shoulder, sending sparks across the armor. Kor did not stop. He turned his body slightly, placing the thickest plates toward the threat. Ethan felt heat pass close to his face, and Kor lifted one arm to shield his head without breaking stride. Ethan's thoughts raced. This made no sense. The enemy did not protect humans. They did not risk themselves for fallen soldiers. Yet here he was, carried away from death by the most feared kind of warrior on the battlefield. Kor moved through the smoke with purpose. He did not rush, but he did not hesitate. Each step took them farther from the noise and closer to quiet. The sounds of battle grew faint, replaced by wind and the soft crunch of boots against dirt. Ethan looked up at Kor's face. The alien's features were hard and strong, shaped by battle and time. His eyes were dark, steady, and focused. There was no anger in them. No joy in violence. Only decision. Kor had chosen this path whatever the cost. Behind them, more calls rang out, louder now. Angry. Urgent. Kor paused for a brief moment, listening. His grip tightened slightly, not in threat but in resolve. Then he continued forward, ignoring the voices behind him. The land ahead dipped into a wide valley, filled with shadow and cool air. Kor entered it without slowing. The smoke thinned and the sky above grew clearer. The red light of the distant sun softened, casting long shadows across the ground. As they moved deeper into the valley, no one followed. The battlefield felt far away now, like a bad dream fading at the edge of memory. Kor slowed his pace and adjusted his hold, lowering Ethan slightly so his injured body rested more comfortably. Ethan's breathing eased. His fear faded into confusion and exhaustion. He no longer understood the war, the enemy, or his place in any of it. All he knew was that he was alive when he should not be. Kor continued walking in silence, carrying the human away from the battlefield, shielding him from the past, and stepping into an unknown future shaped by a single unexpected choice. As Kor carried Ethan away from the battlefield, the giant moved with slow and steady steps, careful not to shake the injured human. Ethan stayed awake by choice, forcing his eyes to remain open even when pain pressed through his body. Each breath felt heavy, but he refused to let darkness take him. He believed that if he slept he might never wake again. So he focused on small things, like the sound of Kor's steps and the rhythm of his movement. The air grew cooler as they moved farther from the fighting. The smoke thinned and Ethan could finally see the sky clearly. It was wide and strange, painted with soft colors that did not belong to Earth. Kor walked without speaking, his silence calm and deep. Ethan did not hear anger or fear in the giant's breathing. It was slow and steady, like someone who knew exactly where he was going. Ethan shifted slightly, his body stiff with pain. Kor noticed at once. He adjusted his grip, lifting Ethan higher so his injured side rested more safely. The movement was gentle, careful in a way Ethan did not expect from such a large warrior. Ethan released a quiet breath, surprised that the alien noticed something so small. They did not share words, but they shared understanding. When Ethan tensed, Kor slowed. When Ethan relaxed, Kor continued. This silent exchange grew stronger with each step. Ethan began to trust that the giant would not drop him, would not harm him, would not turn back. As time passed, Ethan's thoughts wandered. He remembered training drills, long marches, and nights spent staring at stars while waiting for orders. He remembered laughter with friends who were now gone or missing. The memories hurt, but they also reminded him why he stayed awake. He wanted to live. He wanted to remember. Kor noticed Ethan's eyes moving, watching the world. The giant lowered his head slightly, observing the human's face. Ethan's eyes were tired, but they burned with quiet will. Kor had seen many warriors fall. He had seen fear, rage, and surrender. What he saw now was different. This human did not beg. He did not curse. He simply endured. They reached a narrow path between tall rocks. The stones blocked the wind and the air grew still. Kor slowed again, stepping carefully through the tight space. Ethan felt safe there, hidden from open ground and distant eyes. He realized then that Kor was choosing paths meant for protection, not speed. Ethan's throat felt dry. He lifted one hand weakly, pointing toward his chest where his water pack once rested. Kor noticed the motion. He paused and gently lowered Ethan against a smooth rock wall. Supporting the human with one arm, Kor reached to his side and removed a small container. He opened it and brought it close to Ethan's mouth. Ethan hesitated only a moment before drinking. The liquid was cool and clean. Relief spread through his body. He nodded faintly in thanks. Kor watched him closely, then sealed the container and returned it to his armor. He lifted Ethan again just as carefully as before. As they continued, the silence between them felt less empty. It became something shared. Ethan listened to the soft sound of Kor's armor moving. Kor listened to Ethan's breathing. They learned each other without words. The land began to slope downward into a wide valley filled with soft light. Strange plants grew there, glowing faintly and swaying in the gentle wind. Kor slowed to allow Ethan to look. Ethan stared in quiet wonder. Even after all the pain and loss, the universe still held beauty. Ethan looked up at Kor and placed his hand against the giant's armor, not to hold on but to connect. The touch was small and weak, but Kor felt it. He stopped for a moment and looked down at the human. Their eyes met again. In that moment, something settled between them. Trust, simple and clear. Kor resumed walking, his steps confident. Ethan rested his head against the alien's chest, no longer fighting every moment. He stayed awake, but his fear was gone. He knew now that he was not alone. They reached a quiet clearing at the far end of the valley. Kor carefully lowered Ethan onto soft ground. He remained close, standing guard while Ethan rested. Ethan looked up at the giant and allowed himself to breathe freely at last. Whatever came next, he believed Kor would face it with him. In shared silence, under a foreign sky, human and alien rested together, bound not by words, but by choice, patience, and trust that had quietly grown between them. Kor stood tall at the edge of the valley as figures from his own kind approached from the open land. Their armor shone with hard light, and their steps were sharp and fast. Ethan watched from the ground, stronger now but still weak, his body resting against a stone. Kor did not move away from him. Instead, he stepped forward, placing himself clearly between the human and the approaching warriors. His posture was calm, not aggressive. The others stopped several paces away, confused and alert, unsure why a champion would protect a fallen enemy instead of finishing the task given. One of the warriors spoke in a loud, harsh tone, demanding an answer. Kor replied slowly and clearly, his voice deep and steady. He said the human had fought with courage, not cruelty. He said the human had not begged or struck from fear. Kor explained that he had seen many fighters across many worlds, and few had shown such quiet strength while facing death. The others reacted with disbelief. Some shifted their weapons. Some showed anger. Protecting a human broke long-held rules and threatened order within their ranks and command. Kor did not raise his weapon. He kept his hands open and his stance firm. He spoke again, saying strength was not only found in victory, but also in restraint. He reminded them that honor meant knowing when not to destroy. The warriors listened, though some turned away in disagreement. Ethan watched carefully, understanding little of the language but much of the meaning. He could feel tension in the air, thick and dangerous, yet Kor did not step back. His resolve was unbroken and clear. One warrior stepped closer and questioned Kor's loyalty. Kor answered without anger. He said loyalty was not blind obedience, but the defense of what deserved survival. He pointed to Ethan and said humans fought to protect their people, not to erase others. He described how Ethan stayed conscious while wounded, how he endured pain without fear, and how he trusted a stranger instead of surrendering to despair. The warriors fell silent, unsettled by words they did not expect from one of their greatest champions. Ethan slowly pushed himself upright, supported by the stone behind him. His movement drew attention. Kor glanced back briefly, then nodded. Ethan understood the signal. With effort, he activated his damaged communicator and accessed stored records. Images appeared in the air, showing humans helping wounded allies, shielding civilians, and refusing surrender even when outmatched. These were not speeches or weapons but proof. Ethan sent the data outward, using Kor's signal boost to reach nearby fleets and listening stations across the region. The warriors watched the images in silence. They saw humans carrying their own wounded, standing together against impossible odds, and choosing sacrifice over escape. This was not what they had been taught. Murmurs spread through the group. Some lowered their weapons slightly. Others looked uncertain. Kor spoke again, saying the galaxy needed such fighters, not as enemies, but as allies who valued life and choice. He declared that destroying humanity would be a loss greater than any victory gained through force. A long pause followed. The leader of the group stepped forward and studied Ethan carefully. He did not see a monster or a threat. He saw a tired soldier who still stood when he could. The leader turned to Kor and said the message would be reviewed by higher command. No attack would happen here. Not today. The warriors stepped back, forming distance instead of conflict. Kor remained still until they fully withdrew into the open land beyond the valley. When they were gone, the valley felt quieter than before. Kor finally relaxed his stance and turned toward Ethan. The human looked up at him, exhausted but alive. Ethan managed a small nod of thanks. Kor returned it, simple and respectful. He knew the choice he had made would change his path forever. He might face punishment or exile, but he did not regret protecting what he believed was right. Honor, to him, demanded that courage be recognized wherever it appeared. Ethan rested as Kor stood watch. The message continued to travel outward, carried through silent space. Other species would see it. Other minds would question what they believed. Humanity's story would no longer be told only by enemies. It would be seen through action and proof. Ethan closed his eyes briefly, not from weakness but from relief. He had survived and his people had been seen. Kor looked toward the sky, knowing the galaxy had begun to change. Ethan's return to human space began quietly, aboard a small medical ship that moved slowly through calm stars. His body healed faster than expected, but his mind stayed full of memory. He spoke often of Kor, the giant who carried him away from death. Doctors listened. Officers listened. No one laughed. His story spread from room to room, ship to ship, until it reached command halls and distant colonies everywhere. People asked questions. Some doubted. Others believed. Ethan never changed details. He spoke simply, describing strength, silence, and protection. Humanity had not won a battle, but something important had shifted within them all. When Ethan finally stepped onto Earth's soil again, the air felt different. Crowds waited, not loud but respectful. He walked slowly, still recovering yet proud. He told his story again, this time to the public. He described Kor's steady steps, his calm choices, and his refusal to obey cruelty. People listened closely. Many felt hope where fear once lived. Artists painted images of the giant guardian. Writers shared the tale. Children asked questions about alien honor. Kor became more than a warrior. He became a symbol of understanding across impossible distance and difference, standing against blind hate and endless war. Far from Earth, Kor walked a different path. He no longer stood among his former ranks. Some feared him. Some respected him. Stories followed him wherever he went. Whispers spoke of the giant who spared a human and changed a battle without striking a blow. Kor accepted isolation without anger. He believed his choice was correct. He traveled between systems, observing quietly. Other species approached him with questions. He answered honestly. He spoke of Ethan's strength and humanity's courage. Slowly, doubt spread through old beliefs. Not all accepted it, but enough listened to begin change. Messages moved across space, carrying proof and memory. Images Ethan had sent were studied again and again. Leaders argued. Generals paused. Plans were delayed. The war did not end suddenly, but its pace slowed. Battles became fewer. Talks began where weapons once spoke. Humanity gained allies not because of power but because of character. Ethan was invited to speak beside diplomats and explorers. He always told the same story. He said the giant did not save him because he was human, but because he chose honor. That truth mattered more than any victory or defeat. Kor watched these changes from afar. He did not seek praise. He did not want statues or songs. He wanted balance. He believed strength should protect life, not erase it. When others asked why he cared, he answered simply. He said courage recognized courage. Ethan's survival became proof that small choices could shape great futures. Other warriors began to hesitate before attacking humans. Some lowered weapons. Some offered aid. The war lines blurred. Humanity was no longer seen as weak prey, but as resilient equals who endured without cruelty. The galaxy slowly learned to listen. Years passed. Ethan grew older. His injuries healed, leaving scars he carried with quiet pride. He trained new soldiers not only in combat but in restraint. He told them power mattered less than purpose. Many listened. Humanity's fleets changed tactics. Defense replaced conquest. Rescue missions became common. Trust grew slowly, like roots beneath hard ground. Ethan sometimes looked at the stars and wondered where Kor was. He hoped the giant was safe. He believed their paths would never cross again, yet their bond remained strong across distance and time. Kor continued walking alone, but he was never truly alone. His name traveled faster than he did. Some called him traitor. Others called him guardian. He accepted both. He knew change brought resistance. Yet when he saw humans and aliens working together, even briefly, he felt peace. He believed the future depended on understanding, not domination. When conflict arose, he often stood between sides, silent and unarmed. His presence alone reminded others of choice. He became living proof that one warrior's decision could echo across worlds and reshape destiny quietly. Ethan's story became part of history lessons. Children learned about the war that nearly consumed the stars. They learned how it slowed, not through victory but through empathy. Kor's image appeared in books, always standing tall, shielding a smaller figure beside him. Ethan never corrected the image. It was close enough. He believed stories did not need perfection, only truth. Humanity's future felt uncertain but hopeful. They were no longer alone, and they were no longer feared without reason. They were understood, and that mattered more than any fleet. On a quiet night, Ethan stood beneath Earth's sky, watching stars move slowly above him. He thought of the battlefield, the smoke, and the moment everything changed. He whispered thanks into the darkness, knowing Kor would never hear it. Still it felt right. Somewhere far away, Kor stood beneath a different sky, watching unfamiliar stars. He remembered a human's steady eyes and quiet strength. Neither knew the other's fate, yet both understood one truth clearly. The war had changed because they chose understanding when destruction felt easier. The galaxy did not become peaceful overnight. Conflict still existed. Fear still rose. But a new path remained open, carved by trust instead of force. Ethan lived knowing he survived for a reason. Kor lived knowing exile was worth the cost. Together, without standing side by side, they changed the course of history. The war no longer defined humanity. Compassion did. Strength became measured by restraint. And across countless worlds, the story of the giant who believed in humanity continued to guide those willing to listen, shaping a future built slowly on respect.